I am going to show you how we can fix special education in such a way in Brookline that we don't have all the state complaints, that we don't have the Office of Civil Rights complaints. Doesn't cost us a single dollar more to make a giant level of improvement with 3 words. But first, there's something we have to understand. This is a picture of the home page of our website, Brookline Public Schools. And if we look, if we look over here, the bottom left, there's a link. Special Education Standard Operating Procedure Manual. That has been on the home page for about 5 years. Okay, it's a very important part of this. So this is what it takes you to. Special Education Standard Operating Procedure Manual. It was revised in 2017. It's been there for 5 years, written by the Office of Student Services. We're going to take a look at it. This is not going to be a course in special ed. It's not going to be a parents' rights presentation. Just pointing out a couple of issues quickly, because this is available. Okay, so we have typical introduction, definition of terms. We get to the referral process, and it's important to see that a student can be referred pretty much by anyone to get a special ed evaluation. And once that referral is made, the school district has 5 working days to respond to it. Okay? This is in the law, and it's specified here. CMR 2804 is a reference to the Massachusetts law. And we see as we go through, it could be a parent requesting testing for special ed services, either orally or in writing, and that is said or given to any school staff member. So a parent expressing concern and wanting an evaluation, just saying that to a teacher within 5 school days, an evaluation consent form has to go home. And then the school has 30 days to do assessments and testing, and this is all timeline information. The evaluations of the student have to be in all areas of suspected disability. To have a team meeting, it's in a mutually agreed time and place. The school district cannot say, we only do it on Tuesdays, or this is when the meeting is. It has to be a mutually agreed time and place. And the evaluations have to be available at least 2 school days before the team meeting. Okay. Anytime there's a team meeting, if a student is 14 years or older, they must be invited to attend the meeting. Again, this reference to the law is from the IDEA, federal law. Evaluation reports have to be in a clear language that parents and guardians can understand. When you get that OT evaluation, the reading evaluation, you must be able to understand it. And that doesn't mean only English. If it's different language, it has to be translated, but it can't be all jargon. Okay? And the team is required to consider results of outside evaluations. Okay? Doesn't make a determination, but they must consider outside evaluations. And those reports summarize and give impressions and have to offer explicit means of meeting the student's needs, part of the report. Now this part right here is one of the key points we need to just look at for a moment. Oops. Whenever there's a team meeting, required team membership. Again, this is Brookline's procedural manual. In this case, it's based on the IDEA. At every team meeting, at least one gen ed teacher if the student participates in any way, shape, or form in gen ed. There must be a gen ed teacher there, and a special ed teacher, and the parents. Okay? And that's vital. But this, at the top, right here, everyone needs to understand this, and there's a lot of not understanding this, and it's one of the biggest issues in Brookline. There has to be a representative of the school district qualified to provide supervised provision of specially designed instruction, knowledgeable about the gen ed curriculum, and look at number 3 up here. That person is knowledgeable about the availability of resources of the district and has the authority to commit the resources of the district. In Brookline, we call this the ETF, Educational Team Facilitator. The person running the team meeting has the authority to commit the resources of the district by federal law and by state law. So they can never say, I have to ask the director, I have to check. No, the team makes all decisions. The ETF has the authority to commit the resources of the district. Okay, and if we look at the part right before this, there have been multiple state complaints about regular ed teachers, gen ed teachers not coming to meetings or not staying the whole time. That has been multiple complaints. It has also touched within a civil rights complaint. There are many complaints about this where in a meeting the team can't make a decision because part 3 is not done. It must be done even when a school committee member says at a meeting that we don't do this. We have to. The ETF has the authority to commit resources of the district. Okay? Student 14 years of age or older invited to the meeting and should be there when appropriate. And this here has also been involved with some of our civil rights complaints, has been involved with state complaints, and even an OSEP letter has been written. Any person who is invited to the team meeting by Brookline must be on the invitation sheet. Parents must know in advance who the district is bringing, period. No surprises. Nobody can show up from the district who is not on the invitation. So if a meeting invitation, when they're taking attendance, they have to write in people's names, that is a violation of the IDEA, federal law, and Brookline has had multiple complaints about this. At least one civil rights complaint it was involved in and several state complaints. And it's really easy. Okay? And it's right here. The town cannot bring anybody to an IEP meeting that is not on the invitation that a parent has received multiple days in advance. On the other hand, a parent can bring anyone without announcing them first. Not a great idea. Okay? So I'm pointing these out because these are issues that come up and they're different, and they're right in the procedural manual. You get reports 2 days before the meeting. Here is something else that is complained about all the time. If the team feels they have not covered all necessary facets of IEP development in the designated amount of time, the team must extend the meeting or reconvene. Parents often say, an hour is not long enough to do this. We didn't get through everything. I didn't get a chance to say this. Our own procedural manual says there must be enough time. You stay in that meeting, or you follow up with another meeting within a couple of days. Again, It's the law, it's the rules that we've had published for 5 years. Okay? And at the end of the meeting, you get either the proposed IEP or what's considered a summary. Members must be there, okay, members of the team, and if not, the parent has to agree in writing to excuse any members of the team before the meeting begins. Can't be a surprise. And this is all definitions right from the law. A lot of good information in our procedural manual. Effective progress. The team determines whether student is making effective progress in school. This is really tough at times, but this last bullet is so important. And what it says is, if a student is not progressing from one grade to the next, that does not automatically mean they need special ed. Okay? But the opposite is also very true, this last sentence. In fact, the federal special education law prohibits the team from finding a student not eligible because the student is advancing from grade to grade. The district cannot say, oh no, your student is making effective progress. They've just gone from 4th to 5th grade. They're not being held back. Thinking that way is illegal. Okay, it's in our procedure manual. It's in federal law. So a lot more definitions, a lot of background, all really good information. Extended school year. The provision of an extended school year, which is sometimes called summer school, okay, may not be limited to students who have actually experienced regression or unreasonable recoupment in the past. If a student potentially will regress or have recruitment difficulties, they must also be assessed. Something that has been contested in the past. This was the basis of an OCR, an Office of Civil Rights complaint, last year, and also, I believe, 2 state complaints. While it is appropriate for the IEP team to consider ESY services already established by the school, the team must determine services on an individual student basis. Cannot be limited to those services. So the IEP team leader, the ETF, cannot say, well, for summer services, they'll be in our, RISE ESY program, and that's it. No. Does the student need more? Does the student need something different? That's mandated. That's federal and state law. Services on an individual student basis. Not only is it state and federal law, it's Brookline procedures. Okay? And ESY itself can be in a typical traditional classroom setting. Okay? It could be in school-based programs, instruction. It could be cooperative programs with other agencies. Okay, lots of different ways, even home-based programs, intense review before the beginning of the school year. Everything has to be looked at. That's just the way it goes. Now, procedural manual does talk about extended school year documentation form, student recommendation form, which, for whatever reason, is something we don't follow either. It's not state mandated, but it's been decided not to follow it. We're almost done here. This has been a big point of contention for multiple years now and is still a problem. Okay? The district has to get you 2 copies of the IEP within 2 calendar weeks, okay, of the IEP team meeting if they gave you a summary the day of the meeting. Otherwise, they have 3 to 5, It's actually calendar days. There's a mistake here in the law. 3 to 5 days to get it to you. So either way, you must have a copy of the IEP within 2 weeks of the IEP team meeting, period. It's in our manual, it's in the law. Okay? And anything you accept from the IEP is implemented without delay. Okay? And various services that have to be found. Okay, once a child turns 14, you must talk about transition, what the student's going to do after school. You talk about that at the beginning of every IEP team meeting. That's the discussion. Transition, what are we aiming for? What does the student want to do after graduation? Then you figure out the IEP. And then you figure out where that IEP will be implemented. Okay? So these are all the laws, and just about every single thing I just mentioned is one time or another the basis of one or multiple complaints about the district that they have not followed the manual. You can get an independent evaluation. You can reject a district evaluation up to 16 months from the date of the evaluation. Okay, we've had differences of opinions about how evaluations are handled. So how do I know so much about the complaints? Because a lot of people come to me and ask for help with it. I've also read many redacted every complaint, every state complaint for the last 4 years, I think it is. Okay, I've looked at many of the OCR complaints, civil rights complaints, which are on the website and available, and parents have shared some with me. And I can tell you, okay, as I've mentioned in some places before, we have had more civil rights investigations which are initiated by the Office of Civil Rights. Not talking about complaints. Yeah, they get complaints, then they look at them, they throw half of them out, they figure out which ones are worth investigating. And the Office of Civil Rights has investigated more times in the public schools of Brookline than any other district in Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and New Jersey. We're number 1 out of all of those. The only other one in the Northeast, New York, there were more complaints against the New York City School District as a whole and against the Yonkers School District. Other than that, we've had the most number of civil rights investigations. So we come in number 3 out of all of New England, and findings against the school district, we're number 3 in all of New England. Actual findings, things that had to be corrected, that's pretty shameful. State complaints, we're in about the same position in the Commonwealth. We're within the top 5 towns that have had procedural complaints. Okay, and complaints with findings. So that's it. What are my 3 words? How do we fix this? How do we remove the complaints? How do we change things around? 3 words. Follow your manual. If the town of Brookline, the public schools of Brookline, followed their own special ed procedural manual, just about every single state complaint would disappear. Why? State complaints are about the law, legal procedures, and this manual puts them right out there, every single one. We would have a lot fewer civil rights complaints, pretty much for the same reason. Now that's a whole nother discussion how they interact, but many of them do have to do with procedures not being followed. If we follow the law, so much of this goes away. Now, why aren't we following the law? Well, ETFs don't even know their roles or don't have the responsibilities which by law and by the manual they must. Everyone has to know their part. It is mandated that the district give a parent's rights talk to all the parents in special ed and in the district because the special ed rights for evaluations and initial evaluations, that information goes to students in general ed because they're not in special ed yet. District is mandated. Also note that this manual was written 5 years ago, vetted by the school district's outside special ed attorney. Okay, put up on the website. Everybody, all the current administrators have been here while this manual was up there. Okay, and if they haven't been following it, that's not going to change, I don't think, because the manual has been referenced in state complaints that go directly to our directors and administrators, and it's still not followed. As we change special ed director now, whether interim, not direct, as we change deputy superintendent, we need people who know what the law are and who have not been trained to not follow the manual. It's right on the front page of our website for 5 years. Public School of Brookline Special Ed Procedural Manual. Follow the manual. Life is good for everybody. Don't follow the manual. Don't get promoted. We need an external candidates to lead us powerfully and make sure our students get everything they deserve, get a free, appropriate public education, that our administrators know what the law, that our parents know the law, and we stop with the need for complaints. We stop with the need for OCR investigations. Let's all just follow the rules, get some new blood in here, and move forward. 3 words: follow your manual.